Right, good evening. Hope you're all well. Um, as always, our learning is Magno Matzah, trying to protect our Achenu B'nai Israel. There's a lot of rumors going on about what's happening in Eretz Yisrael. We just know that a lot happens in the middle of the night, apparently for the tzava. So all of our learning in general, but especially right now, should be focused in their direction. We're going to be learning Maseches Bava Kama Daf Gimel, and we're starting on the bottom of Beis Amud Beis, 4 lines from the bottom. 4 lines from the bottom, and we're going to be discussing at length today the Shita of Rav Papa. Let's review. We learned in our Mishnah that there are Arba Avos Nezikin. There are 4 types of avos, of damages, in regards to the world of this Masechta, Maseches Nezikin of Bava Kama. Now, we know from the world of Shabbos that Toldos and Avos are the same. We know from the world of Tuma, that Avos and Toldos are not the same. But what about Nezikin? Rav Papa gave a cryptic answer. He said, sometimes Avos are like Toldos, and sometimes are not. So yesterday we heard the first half, which is that sometimes Avos are like Toldos. We concluded that Keren, damages of the horn, the Av and the Toldos are the same. So now the Gemara wants to figure out what exactly is going on with the rest of these Shitas. So the Gemara says, where did I stop on Shabbos? Ella told it the Keren Keren. Is that where we stopped? Mm-hmm. Okay. So v'chika amar Rav Papa ashen v'regel. What Rav Papa was talking about when he said that there are some times that avos are not like toldos, that is talking about shein and regel. We know Keren is avos like toldos. That we know. Where is it that avos are not like toldos? It must be by shein v'regel. So the Gemara says, all right, let's discuss the Mari Makomos behind shein v'regel. Shein v'regel hecha ksivi. Where do we see in the Torah that we learn out that shein and regel are avos? The Gemara says the Tanya. The Brisa writes v'shilach. Take a look at the pasuk on the side so we have a full context. The pasuk writes in Sefer Shmos, Ki yaver ish sadeh o cherem. If a person burns the field of a friend, v'shilach es be'iro, and he is v'shilach, and Rashi, the Gemara says over here, v'shilach zeharegel. That is the damage of the animals that walk through your land, that traipse through your fields, and that damage by crouching, whatever the case may be. V'shilach zeharegel, and the Gemara continues 2 lines from the bottom. And how do we know that v'shilach and regel, those 2 words, are even connected to one another? Mehecha tesi. The Gemara says, don't worry, v'cheinu omer, mishalachei regel hashor ve'achamor. We see that the word mishalachei, shalach, and shor are in the same pasuk. So therefore, shalach and regel are in the same pasuk. Therefore, we see a Mari Makom that Shilach is regel. And the Gemara says on the last line in this brisa, Uvier zehashein, when that same pasuk says Uvier bisteacher, he's going to be consuming in that field. How do animals consume in a field? They eat with their teeth. So zuhashein, that's eating. V'chein hu omer, this is also what the pasuk says, Ka'asher yivar hagalal ad tumo, until the galal, which the second pshat in Rashi over here is a graf shel rei, it's fecal matter. So when an animal goes to the bathroom, sometimes it's seen, sometimes it's not seen, just like shein, just like teeth. Sometimes we smile, you can see the pearly whites, sometimes not. So the Gemara says that's how we know that the word bi'er is a reference to teeth. That's the end of the brisa. In other words, what this brisa's function was to teach us that there are these avos called shein and regel. We haven't yet explained how the toldos are similar to the are different than the avos. We're going to discuss that at the bottom of the page, but that's the brisa that gives us the base Mari Makomos for shein and regel. But the Gemara has a couple of problems with this brisa, and at the top of Gimel Amud Aleph, we start our analysis. Omar Mar b'shilach, we had said zuha regel, and we had quoted from a pasuk v'chein hu omer mishalche regel ashor ve'achamor. So the Gemara makes a diuk. It seems to be that the only reason why we said that the word v'shilach is connected to the word regel is because the Kas of Rachmana, the second pasuk of Mishalche regel ashor ve'achamor. What's implied? Halav hachi, maybe we wouldn't have thought it was regel. B'mai mukmasla. Without the second pasuk, what would I have thought about the word v'shilach? Ikeren. If I might have thought that maybe the word v'shilach was referring to a horn, to the keren, can't be, because ksiv. We already have a pasuk that speaks about Karen. Ayin Daf Beis. We learned this yesterday. And ishain. And if you want to say that the word v'shilach is arbitrary and we don't know what it means, and maybe we should say it means shein, that can't be either because ksiv, because the brisa uses the word uvier at the end of the brisa at the bottom of Beis Amud Beis to teach us that shein is an av of nezik, and therefore ksiv. So if that's the case, why then do we even need this? It should be rather obvious as to what it means. We don't even need it at all. Leave it out. We should know that regel is its own av malacha, and I don't need two psukim. I should have known, even without the second pasuk, that the word v'shilach is a reference to regel. Says the Gemara 5 lines down on Gimel Amud Aleph. No, itzrich. We need both psukim, v'shilach and mishalche regel hashor ve'achamor. Why? Because salka daita chamina, I might have thought idi v'idi ashen. I could have learned these two psukim. I could have made a mistake and learned these two psukim as both talking about Shane, meaning v'shilach and uvier. I could have thought that those two psukim were talking about Shane. How could I have thought that the word v'shilach and uvier were talking about Shane? One of the psukim was talking about the mechal yakarna, where the damage was so significant that the actual principle is gone, meaning the animal was doing what he was doing in the field. He was biting at the roots, and now nothing else can grow. That's the mechal yakarna. Even the basic principle that was there is gone. So maybe that's what v'shilach means. And ha de lo mechal yakarna, and another pasuk is saying that no, the damages are different if he ruins them but doesn't destroy their growth in the future. Kamash malan, that distinction is an unreasonable distinction. But when the Brisa brings the second pasuk, it shows us that distinction is not valid, and therefore the shilach is coming to teach us regel, and ubir is coming to teach us shame. Says the Gemara, all right, I hear your svara, but v'hashta de ukimna aregel. Now that you've told me that the word v'shilach is a reference to the av malacha, the av nezikin, I should say, of regel, shein de lo mechal yakarna minalan. Then how do we know about the lack of distinction between whether or not the principle is destroyed? Says the Gemara, don't worry. They're in the same pasuk. V'shilach, which is regel, is in the same pasuk of uvier, dum yud regel, and they therefore have similarities. Ma regel, just like when it comes to the regel of an animal, loshna mechal yakarna, veloshna lo mechal yakarna. It makes no difference if the damage that is done is more permanent or more temporary. Af shein, the same is true by shein, loshna mechal yakarna, veloshna lo mechal yakarna. So we analyzed and tore apart the first part of this brisa, and we've concluded so far with clarity that we needed both psukim. We needed the pasuk of v'shilach, we needed the pasuk of mishalche regel. There is no question that v'shilach teaches us about regel. There is no question that uvier teaches us about shein. Good to go. Again, we haven't even gotten to Rav Papa yet, which really will be the focus of today. We're going to get there toward the bottom of the page, because remember what Rav Papa, we're trying to figure out from Rav Papa what he meant when he said that sometimes by Nezikin the Toldos and the Avos are not the same. We're not there yet. We're still analyzing the Brisa. And here is the analysis of the second half of the Brisa. We're about a fifth of the way down, 12 lines down. Amar Mar. We had said in our Brisa at the bottom of Beis Amud Beis, Uvier Zo Hashein. And then here too, we brought a second pasuk. V'cheinu Omer Kasher Yiver Hagalal Ad Tumo. And the Gemara here asks a very similar line of reasoning. Why bother with two psukim? It seems to be taima that the reason why we hold that uvier is shein is because of the second pasuk, the kasav rachmana kasher v'ragalal atumo. Remember, as we said in Rashi, if you look at the second line of Rashi, lishnachrina galal zerei she'ashein miva'eres, that the teeth, we eat food and it consumes, and then the animal goes to the bathroom, whatever the case may be. It seems that the only reason that we assume that shein is and beer are related is because of that second pasuk of kasher yivar hagalal atumo halafachi. But if not for that second pasuk, b'mayu kimnale, what else would I have established that word uvier to mean? If you wanted to say that perhaps I would have misappropriated the word and assumed that uvier taught us ikera, and that can't be because ksiv, that already has a dedicated pasuk, as we learned yesterday. And iregel, and if you want to say that it's talking about regel, well, that's the first part of our Mishnah of v'shilach, and therefore ksiv. Therefore, there's nothing left for us to analyze there. And it seems to be that it's rather obvious that the word uvier means shein. Why bring the second pasuk? So here too, the Gemara says itzrich. We need both psukim. We're about a third of the way down. Salka daita chamina. I might have thought that idi ve'idi are regel. Maybe I would have thought that, yes, the word v'shilach is talking about regel, but if you didn't give me the second pasuk by shein, I might have thought that uvier is also talking about regel. How so? Ha de azil memela. In one case, we're talking about an animal that causes damages with the regel when they were memela, when they were grazing on their own. Without the bailim pushing them there, they walked into your field and started grazing. But perhaps perhaps maybe we could have learned the second pasuk of Uvier to teach us that when I send my cow to graze in your field, that's different. Kamash malan, that there is no difference. The animal's grazing on its own. The animal is not muad. The animal is just eating, and he doesn't know what kind of grass he's eating. He doesn't know who it belongs to. He could be eating in my yard or yours. He's a cow. He doesn't know what's going on. That's it. So the Gemara says, Kamash malan, because we didn't want you to assume that perhaps both V'shilach and Uvir are discussing regel, we therefore brought the second pasuk. Fine. So now we know conclusively that the word Uvir is a reference to Shane. Then the Gemara says, okay, V'hashta de uki ashen, now that you've established that the word Uvir is talking about Shane, about the Av Nazikin of Shane, regel de azla memela minolan. How do we know that there's no difference in the hezek of an animal eating because I sent the animal there or because the animal walked there on his own? Says the Gemara, don't worry. Dumya d'shein. Remember that the word v'shilach and uvir are in the same pasuk. V'shilach is a reference to regel, and uvir is a reference to shein. And says the Gemara, dumya d'shein, ma shein lo shna shilcha shluche lo shna de'azal memela. Just like when an animal eats food that it shouldn't be eating, it doesn't matter if it went there on its own or if you sent it. Af regel, the same thing is true of the feet damaging the property. Lo shna shalcha shluche, lo shna azla memela. Makes no difference at all. So says the Gemara, well, okay, I hear what you're saying. I got it. But perhaps we could have simplified what our learning should be. Says the Gemara, v'lichtov rachmana v'shilach, v'lo boiv uvir. Maybe I could get away with only having the pasuk say the word uvir, v'shilach. And maybe I don't need the word uvir at all. Demashma regel umashma shein. That maybe the word v'shilach actually implies both the av nezikin of regel and the av nezikin of shein. How so? Mashma regel, the word v'shilach teaches us regel. Dichsiv mishalche regel ashor v'achamor, as we've already seen. There's a word association in the pasuk. Shalach and regel are in the same pasuk. But there's another pasuk that has the word shalach with the word shein. Says the Gemara, umashma shein shenemar v'shein behemos ashalach bam. What do we see here? Shalach and shein are in the same pasuk. So asks the Gemara, you did well explaining the brisa to me. I understand what you're saying. But still, I'm going to push you one more time. Because the word v'shilach has a word association both to regel and to shein. And if that's true, then perhaps only the word v'shilach is valuable to us and not the word uvir. Says the Gemara, ilav kroyesera. If not for the fact that there was an extra pasuk of uvir, hava amina, I might have thought, oha, that it was only one or the other, regel or shein, but not both. Maybe o regel de hezeko matsui. Maybe I would have thought that the word v'shilach is only talking about a case of a damage that's very common, which is animals walking. If you've ever gone anywhere on like a horse ride, you can see that the footmarks of a horse as they walk are deep. They could easily ruin the grass that you're growing and the plants that you're harvesting. Easily, no problem at all. So maybe that's what v'shilach meant. It's only talking about regel. Oh, shein, or perhaps the word v'shilach is only talking about shein, the yesh hana lehezeko, because there's hana there for the hezek, and maybe that's what v'shilach is talking about. The Gemara says, that I don't understand. Michti, let's analyze. Shkulen hein. The fact that regel is hezeko matzui and shein is yesh hana lehezeko, there are two uniquenesses, I agree, but who cares? There are two uniquenesses, but they're level playing field. V'yavo shneim, d'hai minay mafkes. How do you know which one to even take out? So perhaps we should still say v'shilach means both regel and shein. And the Gemara says a little bit more than halfway down, no, not correct. And back to square one, we need to answer the question again. Itzrich, we still need to have both psukim. Salkadaito chamina hani mili hecha de shalach shluche aval ozla memela lo kamash malon. I might have thought that there's a difference between when an animal is sent to do damage versus when an animal goes on his own. Kamash malon. The reason why we have the second word in the pasuk of uvir is to remind us to make sure that we know that this animal that damages does not know where he is. These animals are clueless. They see grass, they eat. It's very simple. They live a simple life. And if I send them to your yard, just go eat over there. They don't know what they're doing. So says the Gemara, that's what we needed to know by having the word uvir.
We're not much different. You put food in front of us. Also, you go to Kiddush, you go whatever.
Right. I hope we're mavchin a little bit between we at least hopefully make a bracha, like a gentle distinction between.
Have you been to our Kiddush?
No, I actually have not been to your Kiddush.
No, not my Kiddush, our friend's Kiddush.
I don't know if you're talking about the kids or the adults. I don't even know which age bracket you're talking about. Yeah, moo. It's true. It's a big problem. Okay, so that's what the Gemara says. We're done with this section. Now we have Mari Makomos. The importance of these Mari Makomos is that every Av Nezikin has to have a pasuk. So Karen yesterday had a pasuk. Now Regel has a pasuk. Now Shane has a pasuk. We're going to have to hold on to these in our memory banks throughout the Masechta because Avos Nezikin, Rashi says this in the beginning of the Masechta, and Daf Beis Mid Aleph. He says that all of the Avos Nezikin are coded in the psukim themselves. So we've got Karen, Shane, and Regel now done. Let's get back to yesterday's sugya, which is Rav Papa told us that sometimes Nezikin, the Avos are like the Toldos, and sometimes not. Karen, yesterday we said Karen, Avos are like Toldos. So ask the Gemara now, Tolda Deshain Maihi. If you want to tell me that Rav Papa is teaching us that the Avos and Toldos by Shane are different, well then what are the Toldos of Shane? Let's dig in. And the Gemara says, and I'm just going to give you fair warning, we're going to see 6 answers here before we get to the bottom of it. That'll be the end of the day today. We're going to answer this question, but just to say for the 3rd, 4th time, I just want to be super clear. We're answering the following question. Rav Papa told us that Nezikin is sometimes Avos and Toldos are the same, and sometimes Avos and Toldos are not the same. He checked off the first box. By Keren, by horn damage, Avos and Toldos are the same. Where do we see by Nezikin that Avos and Toldos are not the same? So this is answer number 1 by Shane, by the world of teeth. Says the Gemara, how can we see the Toldos? The Gemara says, Nischachecha bekosel lahana. Let's say you see an animal, it has a little bit of an itch on its back. It walks over to a mud brick wall and it rubs the side of its back on the mud brick wall to itch a scratch. Or v'tinfa peiros lahana. He sees a big vat, what he thinks is water. What you spent is $20,000 on harvesting olives, and the cow jumps right in and rolls around because he likes the cold water, right? So this is damaging. These are toldas of Shane. So says the Gemara, if that's the example of a tolda of Shane, then the Avos and Toldos are the same. Maishna Shane, the Yeshana lehazeko. When we talk about Shane, if an animal damages by eating, so there, the Yeshana lehazeko, the animal is enjoying what he's doing, even though it's hezek. And for me as the owner, umamoncha ushmiraso alecha, that's true by Shane. Haninami, the cases of nischachecha bakosel, and the case of v'tinfa peros, Yeshana lehazeka, umamoncha ushmiraso alecha. So therefore, the Avos and Toldos are the same. So therefore, that answer cannot work because we're looking now to fill the bucket of Rav Papa where Avos and Toldos are different. Says the Gemara, you're 100% right. 3/4 of the way down, you're right. You're right. Ela tolda de Shane kishain. The toldas of Shane are like the Avos of Shane, no difference. And now what we've done is we have gotten 2 things on one side of the screen here, which is that the Avos and Toldos of both Keren and Shane are the same. So now let's move along to answer number 2. V'chika amar Rav Papa, when Rav Papa was trying to teach us that there's a difference between Avos and Toldos, that was a Tolda de Regel. That was talking about the Tolda of Regel. Let's analyze this one. Okay. Tolda de Regel, Maihi. What are the Toldos of the Av Nezikin of Regel? Hezeka begufa derachilucha, an animal's walking, got a big belly, and as it's walking, it knocks things down and they break. Or Bisara derachilucha, it has a long mane and the hair gets caught in the jewelry thing at the flea market, tears the whole thing down, breaks everything. The shalif shaleh, a package is on the animal, also overladen, hanging off the sides and breaks something. Biprumbia shebefiha, the rain that's in its mouth, the rain that gets stuck on something and breaks things. The zug shebetzavara, the bell that's on it. All of these things are the toldas of Regel. So says the Gemara, perhaps this is what Rav Papa meant when he said that Avos and Toldos are different, that in Regel, the Av Nezikin, it's one halacha, and all the Toldos are different. Says the Gemara, I'm not having it. No, because Maishna Regel, what about the Av Nezikin? Dehezeko matsui umamoncha shmiraso alecha. By Regel, the hezek is very commonplace, and you are chayav on its shmira. Haninami, all of the examples that you just gave as Toldos are also the same category. Hezekan matsui umamon chosh mirasan alecha. Same exact parameters. The Avos and Toldos are the same. So strike two. The Gemara says you're 100% right. 8, 9 lines from the bottom. Elotolda de regel keregel, you're right. So now let's remember, we have all on one side, Keren, Shane, and Regel. All three of those avos nezikin and their toldos are the same. Rav Papa, we still need an answer from you. The Gemara says, V'chikama Rav Papa, atolda debor. Perhaps we're talking about a different av malacha. We're talking about the av nezikin of bor, damages that are caused by a pit. If you leave a pit open and you're achroi for that pit, then when somebody falls into that pit, you are on the hook. Let's analyze. Tolda de bor ma'inihu. I know what the av of bor is. That's if I damage something because of the pit that I have. What are the toldos? Ilema that av yud the tolda tes. If you want to say that the av malacha of bor is when the depth of the pit is 10, and the tolda of bor is when the depth is only 9, a little bit more shallow. Lo tes ksivi v'lo yud ksivi. That's an arbitrary distinction, because if it's 9 deep or 10 deep, you made that up. The Torah doesn't tell us that. So how can you distinguish between an av and a tolda when the Torah doesn't tell us what the av is? Says the Gemara, well, that's actually not a good question. The distinction between 9 and 10 might be very valuable. Halo kasha, 6 lines from the bottom on Gimel Amud Aleph. Why? Because v'amesi lo amar Rachmana. The Torah says that when an animal falls into the bor, that the mace will belong to the plaintiff. The kimluhu l'Rabbanan, the rabbis have the following presumption in halacha. Yud avde misa. When there is a bor that's 10 tfachim deep, that will kill an animal that falls into it. But tes, if the depth of the pit is only 9 and not 10, nizakin avde, misa lo avde. It will damage your animal, but it will not kill your animal. So therefore, the Gemara says that perhaps this then is the distinction, that the av malacha is when there's 10 tfachim deep in the bor, and the tolda is only 9. Says the Gemara, no, 4 lines from the bottom. Sof, ze av lemisa, ze av lenizakin. No, those are different now. If you're saying that 10 deep kills and 9 deep doesn't, that's not the av in the tolda. That's an av of misa and an av of nizikin, but not a tolda. Nizakin is not the same, and not even close to the same as Misa. So therefore, the Gemara says, Ella, what are we talking about? What are the toldas of a bor? A tolda of a bor is just like a bor is dangerous when you leave it open. A tolda of a bor is leaving something else dangerous in public. Like, for example, Ella, avno, a big stone, sakino, a knife, umasao, or a big package, shehinichan birshus harabim vehiziku. Those are the toldas of bor. It's like if a child leaves Legos right outside your bedroom door before he goes to sleep, and then he cries for you in the middle of the night, and you step on those Legos. Those Legos are a bor birshus harabim, and they are a tolda of the av nizikin of bor. So that's what the Gemara says, that perhaps those are considered to be the toldas of bor. And maybe, just maybe, we have an answer for Rav Papa, that maybe by bor, the av, which is the bor, and the tolda, which is dangerous items that are left stationary in public, maybe that's where the av and the tolda are not the same. The Gemara says, no dice, heichidami. Ida afkirinhu, if I was mafkir, these dangerous items, the stone and the knife and anything else that I leave in public, so then bein lerav, bein l'shmuel hainu bor. Everyone would agree. This distinction of Rav and Shmuel is not helpful yet. It will be down the road. But Rav and Shmuel would all agree that hainu bor, it's the same thing. It's not a tolda. It is bor. Bor is just an idea of don't leave things in public that are going to hurt people. That's not a difference between a tolda and an av. Top of Gimel Amud Beis. If you left a massive stone or a knife in a public space and you were not mafkir it, Shmuel, according to Shmuel, de Amar Kulam Miboro Lamadnu Hainu Bor. Then according to him, since you weren't mafkir it, then the stone is the same thing as the hole. And Rav de Amar Kula Mishoro Lamadnu. And if according to Rav we say that we learn our certain principles from shore, again we have to learn this sugya in a couple of days. So then Hainu shore, then it's not a bor, but it's a shore because the shore in public is no different than a knife in public. But one way or the other, it's still not an av and a tolda. So the Gemara says, "My shna bor shekain tchilas asiyaso lanezek umamoncha shmiraso alecha." When it comes to a bor, there the tchilas asiyaso lanezek, it was made to trap animals. It was made to be a hole in the ground. and it's your mammon, and you're obligated to protect it. Hani nami. All of these toldas are also tchilas asiyas lanezek umamon chashmirasan alecha. Answer number 3 has come and gone. Therefore, bor, the avos and the toldos are the same, and therefore now we have 4 things in the first category. We have keren, we have shein, we have regel, and we have bor. All 4 of them, according to the Gemara, are in the category of avos and toldos are the same. So we still don't have an answer for Rav Papa. When would it be the case in the world of Nezikin that the avos and the toldos are not the same? The Gemara attempts with answer number 4, 6 lines down on Gimel Amud Beis. We'll be stopping about 6 lines from the bottom of the page. Let's keep going. Tolda debor kibor, you're right. Ela tolda debor kibor. V'chika amarav papa atolda demave. There's still one left in the Mishnah that we haven't even described yet. The only feature that we know about Mava is that it's a living creature. We saw that in the Mishnah. But other than that, we don't know what Mava is. We're going to see a hint to it now. At the bottom of the page, we're going to start the sugya of Mava, but we'll learn it right now at 30,000 feet. The Gemara says, Mai nihu. What are the toldas of Mava? Shmuel de Amar Mava Zoshein. If you want to say, according to Shmuel, that when our Mishnah says that there's an Av Nezikin called Mavet, it's talking about Shein, Ha'ukimna, we already learned 5 minutes ago, told the Shein Kishain. That we already saw just a couple minutes ago. That was answer number 1 on the bottom of Gimel Amud Aleph. And Ile Rav de Amar Mavet ze Adam, and according to Rav, who holds that Mavet, this damaging Av in our Mishnah, is talking about a person, my avos, my toldos, ispe. When it comes to people, there's no avos and toldos when it comes to nezikin. V'chitema av neur tolda yashen. Maybe we could argue, when I'm awake and I do something damaging, that's my fault. But when I'm sleeping, that's a tolda? Absolutely not. Please listen to the next line. This is going to come up. V'hatnan. It's impossible to say that. Adam muad la'olam. Bein bein yashen. If you are a wild sleeper, and while you are sleeping, you swing your hand and break a lamp, you are muad le'olam. It's as if you're wide awake and did it on purpose. You're on the hook, and you have to pay for that. You have to pay for that chandelier. It's yours. That lamp is yours. Adam is muad le'olam. If Adam is muad le'olam, so then you can't tell me that the Av is when I'm awake and the Tolda is when I'm sleeping. There's no such thing. Av and Tolda are one and the same. Ela akicho v'nio, maybe you can say that perhaps akicho v'nio, that a person, they spit something out of their mouth and it damages. Let's say someone has a very delicate, easily stained garment and you spit on the garment. So says the Gemara, if that's what we're talking about, well, heichidami, what's the case? If it's if he did this on purpose, he's spitting it out on purpose, then that's kocho, that's him doing the action. If I spit on your garment intentionally, that's me spitting on your garment. And ibasar denayich, and if it already landed on the ground, bein l'Rab, bein l'Shmuel, haynu bor. Then again, it's not av and told of maveh, but once it lands on the ground, that's not Adam anymore. That's bor. That's like the knife sitting on the ground. That's like a pile, the spittle on the ground. It's not the same. We don't have av and tolda when it comes to a human being. The Gemara says you're 100% right. And now we're 0 for 4, really 0 for 5 if you break up Rav and Shmuel, because Ela tolda demave kemave. You're right. Now we have 5 things on the right side. It's unbelievable. Keren, Shein, Regel, Bor, and Mave. 5. We're 0 for 5 right now. So Rav Papa, you're getting to the end of the wire here. We're almost out of options. We don't yet have a case in the world of Nezikin where the Avos and the Toldos are different. Please give us an answer. The Gemara says a third of the way down. You're right. We're getting there. This is still not going to be accepted, but we're getting there. Let's try this one. Maybe in the world of Eish, says Rav Papa, the Avos and the Toldos will be different. The Gemara says, okay, let's go through the same process that we've gone through 4 times already. Tolda de Eish, my nihu. I know that Eish is one of the Avos Nezikin. Great. But what are the Toldos? Ilema avno sakino umaso shehinichan berosh gago v'naflo beruach metzuya v'hiziko. A fire is moving. Let's say that I have on the top of the ledge of a very tall building, I have a rock, and I have a knife, and I have something else. What was the other one? and a package. And I just gently go like this. Whoop. And now they're falling down. When they're falling and damaging things, that's the same thing as me starting a fire. So perhaps Aish, which is a fire I light over here and it burns the yard over there, maybe that's no different than me pushing a rock off the building and it ended up killing someone or damaging property down below. Because it's moving. If it was stationary, it would be a bore. If it's not moving, then it's no different than a pit. But when we have it falling off the building and moving, so that's no different than Aish. So Aish is a fire. And what is the tolda of Aish? That's when I throw a rock off of a building. No, I lit the match, I drop the rock.
It's not throwing, it's actually.
It's falling, right? It's even ruach mitsuya. It has to be that way, actually.
Right.
Otherwise, it's kocho,
Much more similar to the fire,
which is blown by wind. Correct. That's right. So they fall on their own. So says the Gemara, well, hechidami. Ibaha de dik de azlu kamazke hainu eish. If while they're falling off the roof, they damage things, then it's exactly like eish itself. No difference between Av and Tolda. And ibahade de and maishna sorry hechidami ibahade de kaazlu kamazki. If while they're falling down, hainu eish, and therefore maishna eish de koach acher me'urabba. There's a secondary force at play here, which is wind, as David just pointed out. Wind makes fire move. Gravity makes rock fall, right? Or maybe that's really not the right way to say it. A wind pushed the rock off the top of the building is probably a little bit more accurate. And there we would say by the fire, these things that the wind blew off the building, 0 for 5. And now add Aish to the growing list of things where the Avos and the Toldos are identical. Finally, the Gemara comes up with a real answer. The Gemara says, you're right. Ela Tolda de Aish ke Aish. So now I remember on the right side, Keren, Shane, Regel, Bor, Mave, and now Aish. Got 6 things on the right side. So the Gemara says, V'chik amar Papa, Atolda de Regel. Wait 1 second. We spoke about Regel already. Regel was, what was that? Answer number 2? I think it was answer number 2. I wrote it down. It's answer number 2. Talking about Regel again, that's a cheap shot. It doesn't even make any sense. So the Gemara says, what do you mean Regel? Regel, ha'ukimna, Tolda de Regel keregel. We already discussed this. The Tolda Regel is like Regel already. The Gemara says, don't worry. What is not the same is the consequences. When we have a Tolda of Regel, you're right that you're still chayiv, and they're very similar, but the punishments are different. Bechati nezek tzroros tehilchasa gemirila. There's a halacha l'Moshe Sinai with chati nezek that one is only chayiv chati nezek on tzroros. Tzroros is a tolda of regel. Regel is where the animal's foot tramples on your fruit. Tzroros is where the animal's leg kicks up a rock and then breaks your windshield. There, it is similar, but the onesh is different. And therefore, we have an example where the tolda is not the same as the av. In all the other cases we've discussed, the punishments are identical. Here, because of a halacha l'Moshe Sinai, not because of regular svara, but because of halacha l'Moshe Sinai, the punishments of tzroros, which is a tolda of regel, chati nezek tzroros, is dilchazak miria. Okay? V'mai kari la tolda de regel. Why is it that we call tzroros a tolda of regel? L'shalem min ha'aliyah, because it's similar to regel and that it needs to be paid from the finest of properties. Okay, this is the answer to Rav Papa. Let's review just so that we're super clear. We were confused yesterday as to where Nezikin falls. Is Nezikin like Shabbos, where Avos and Toldos are similar, or is Nezikin like Tuma, where Avos and Toldos are not? Rav Papa says it's split. It's really not split, as we've concluded. Nearly everything is Avos and Toldos are the same in the world of Nezikin. The only exception is Regel as it relates to Tzroros. The Tolda of Tzroros as it relates to Regel has a different onesh. That's Rav Papa's answer. So the far majority of things are Avos and Toldos are the same. And everything else is basically toldos, and most of them are toldos are the same as the av, except for chatzin nezek toros, which is different. And we're actually going to stop at the 2 dots in a minute because it's just a bad place to break where I had initially stopped. So we'll stop at the 2 dots. Let's just learn 1 or 2 more lines. The Gemara says v'ha mibaya ba'irava. But wait 1 second. You're saying that chatzin nezek toros is a davar pashut? Rav Papa, it's not a davar pashut. Rav Papa, Rava struggled with it. How do we pay? Do we pay migufa or do we pay min ha'aliyah? So the Gemara says, The Rava mi boyole, the Rav Papa pshitale. What's the problem? Why does Rav Papa have to be kafaf to Rava? Rava had a hard time with the question. Rav Papa didn't. So the problem is still solved. It says the Gemara, the Rava mi boile. According to Rava, who says it's a problem, Amai Karile told the regel. So the Gemara says, why is it, according to Rava, if you are not sure about what the punishment is, then how can you call it a tolda of regel? So he says the reason why is lepotra b'reshus harabim, is that had it been done in reshus harabim, then things would be different. It would have been pater, and that needed to be under the umbrella of regel. We're going to stop right here with the 2 dots, 3/4 of the way down with the words hamave ve'hahever, and tomorrow we'll pick up on the actual discussion of the machlokas of what the word mave means. We saw a hint to it today. We'll see it in full tomorrow. Wishing you all a beautiful night.